Now that's useful to know, and there's some data saying that if you work hard, you convert one to the other. But the fact is that if you are genetically wired to be an endurance athlete, then maybe that's something that, particularly if you're a child or even an adult, do it. It's okay to do what you're good at. Why not? And if you're not so good at it, well, you can still go lift weights. August Rush is a phenomenal movie. Because if you know the movie, it's about two parents, both gifted musicians, have a child who is beyond gifted, right? And the child has no training, doesn't know anything about it. It doesn't, the message for me in the movie is genetics does count in ways that you can't even comprehend. Okay. They found that genes impact how you learn. There's a gene, for example, that in young children make it more difficult for them to learn to read. This could be useful to know when you have young children because it will change it, to me, it will change the dialogue with the teacher. It says, you know, Susie may not be able to read as well. She's not dumb. It's not a question of intelligence. I don't want you allowing kids to tell her she's stupid. I don't want you treating her as if she's stupid. Let's figure out how to get her to read right. There's also a gene that says that when you have it, you don't learn from negative experiences. Some of that be teenagers, but that's a sentence. They recently, in a recent publication, found there's a genetic basis. 30% of the people have a gene that they don't learn how to drive well. It has a higher frequency in Virginia. Those in Maryland can appreciate that. And of course, here's an example of what happens if you don't learn. Okay. Weight management is a huge issue. And I spent 8 years in the weight loss field as a weird combination, general counsel and chief scientist of the weight loss company. Talk about wearing two hats that don't make any sense. One of the things I learned is that most of the weight loss model is about guilt and blame and telling you why you're bad. This is not a very useful way to go about things. There's a gene called the GLUT2 gene that when people have this variant, they eat 1 to 2 pounds of sugar, more sugar a month than everybody else. Now, if you're thin, eating 2 Snicker bars a day don't make any difference at all, right? But if you have this gene and you're trying to lose 20 pounds, you may, without knowing it, eat more sugar and say, whoa, I don't have to do that. I can control what I eat because now I know there's something pushing me over to the Snickers counter. That's where the control comes. So it's nature versus nurture. DNA is fixed for life. You're born with it, you go out into the world, you go out of the world with the same DNA set of sequences. DNA really is a set of 4 letters. They form 22,500 words, which we call genes. That's our genetic dictionary. Thousands of letters long. Very complicated. Because it's complicated, the letters actually, we get a lot of misspelling. You think school's bad? You should try genetics, right? Our body can't spell anything correctly. It just keeps changing. Well, when it changes spelling sometimes, it changes the biology. And the misspellings become expressed in different ways. We become different people. RNA, you heard this morning, is the work engine of the body. The DNA is the blueprint. The RNA is made to produce proteins. The amount of RNA that's made depends on what the body's doing. So when you eat a meal, insulin is produced. Your RNA production is ramping up to say, we've got to digest this stuff. So it's a very dynamic process. On the nurture side, your psychology and emotional states a factor. Hormones affect our body and what we are. Nutrients are important. Macronutrients, micronutrients. Definition for me of a micronutrient, every chemical has a biological impact somewhere in the genome. Everything. Forget the classic 50 things that we learned about. It's every chemical has effect. Even pharmaceuticals, which are these small molecules, physical changes can take place. And there's a thing called epigenetics in which the DNA itself doesn't change the sequence, but it changes how it's shaped, how it's organized as a result of the environment, and it actually can be inherited in its new shape, and it changes how the gene functions. So we do know everything is nature and nurture, and so here are a bunch of foods that impact us, and the term that's used to identify how our diet interacts with our genes is called nutrigenomics. 10 years ago, if you did a Google search on the word nutrigenomics, you would get 10 hits maximum, because it was brand new. If you did it today, you'd spend a lifetime reading all this stuff. So I want to give you some examples of how the gene interacts with the environment. I told you about the GLUT2 gene, in which people who are II and IT eat 1 to 2 pounds of sugar more a month. Here's the ApoA5 gene. We know, how many people here heard of the Atkins diet? Nobody heard of the Atkins diet? Yeah, right. Atkins diet is low carb, right? But also tends to be high fat. Okay, well, how about this? If you are the TT type and more than 30% of your diet comes from fat, you're not going to lose weight. You become obese. And the obesity increases linearly with the percentage of fat. Well, that you need to know, right? Because I don't know how many times you listen to the diet gurus having fights, Dean Ornish and Atkins. Well, low carb, low fat, low carb. Well, hey guys, we're not the same people. We're different genetically. So one diet works for one person, not for another. The adenosine gene, monounsaturated fatty acids. If it's more than 13% of your energy, the A characters, those with an AAAG, have a lower BMI than GG. In other words, if you're eating a lot of monounsaturated fats and you're a GG type, you are pushing yourself into obesity. Wouldn't it be cool to know that, so that you could say, I want to change my diet, right? Okay. Now, what's going on? This is a kind of visual metaphor. Up until the 21st century, our DNA was just like this book. We all knew it's there. They knew about heredity in Egypt. This is not new stuff. But that book has been closed. But the new technology lets us read the book. And lets it read it really cheaply. For example, this is a DNA collector. Right? You swab your cheek. No blood, nothing terrible. Even a kid could do it. There's enough DNA here to test your entire genome if you wanted to. So it's easy to do. So here's what I see happening in our world. Because we have access to DNA in a way we never did before, we can begin rethinking how we want to live our lives. It helps to know the DNA of our children and ourselves because it lets us evolve new strategies on how to deal with life, how to deal with them, how to raise them. It helps us stronger relationships. We have found that, for example, a married couple, you say, well, now I know why you're a little crazy in that way.